Piki mai, kaki mai, no mai, haere mai. Kia ora. I declare this meeting of the Wastewater Treatment Plant and Landfill Joint Committee open. Members are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed and to please use your microphones. Kia ora everybody there on the YouTube. I will invite members to recite the karakia, which is on the screen. Toru wha. Whakataka tahau ki te uru. Whakataka tahau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ki uta. Kia mā tātara ki tai. E hi ake ana, te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, Māori order. Kia ora. We'll move on to apologies. No apologies have been received. We will now move on to public forum. I have a request to speak from Michelle Wachowski and Mari Wright, which is 5 minutes each, but I understand that they want to take those together as one. So, each speaker, while you come up, Mari, I'm noting, is Michelle coming to join?
No, she's
okay. So just in light of the fact that it's, yeah, so in light of the fact that Michelle's not here, I'm going to, instead of the 10 minutes, I'll be the 5 minutes for that presentation. Please note that a bell will be rung at the 4 minute mark and again at the 5 minute mark. You members may be willing to ask questions of clarification only and cannot enter into debate with speakers. Speakers should note that the restrictions in the standing orders, including that matters which are subject to separate hearing processes, must not be discussed, and that the speaker cannot speak on an issue that they have previously spoken about. With that all in mind, Mari, the floor is yours.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, before she starts, is it not 10 minutes if you're an organisation?
She's approached here as a private
person.
individual.
Oh.
So in the standing orders, I'm recording it as 5 minutes. Sorry. We'll restate, and please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mari Wright, and I've come here today to express my disappointment in Wellington Water. Number one, in November, I gave a detailed presentation on the White House Road sewer renewal, while Steve Hutchison spent the 5 minutes on his phone. After the live broadcast, I received phone calls of support in saying how rude his behaviour was. I spent hours preparing my presentation and getting copies of the map I enclosed. The map detailed the option for Wellington Water and Porirua City Council to bypass private property at 5 and 7 Toms Road and 4 Bothamley Lane. The Porirua City Council had requested funding for this project to be allocated in the 22-23 to help continue this project. When the original wastewater pipes were put in, a solid base was not constructed. Instead, the pipes were laid across felled trees and vegetation and an old fence, like the contractors attempted to do when Anunga Creek, which runs through 5 Toms Road, was piped 8 or 9 years ago. Thanks to Councillor Ken Douglas and other council members who inspected the site almost daily, the contractors had to put a solid foundation down before the pipes were laid. 2. On the 27th of February, after giving my presentation, I requested through the Official Information Act information regarding White House Road sewer renewal. I asked regarding the White House Road sewer renewal plans. 1, has there been an update? And 2, I would like to see any plans / concept design for taking the new sewer line down Toms Road to the beachfront and along the paper road outside 7 Toms Road to join up with the existing sewer pipe outside 4 Bothamley Lane and to flow onto the wastewater treatment plant. Wellington Water staff did not have the courtesy to mention my request in their reply dated the 17th of April. I requested this on the 27th of February and got the reply on the 17th of April. Or speak to any of the residents concerned. Instead, they deferred the project again to the long-term plan 26-27 financial year. What happened to the money allocated for this project in 22-23? And was this project deferred to the too hard basket? 3, the signage. At the The signage at the south end of the beach, where the stormwater pipe flows into Titahi Bay Beach, has been removed. This sign was put up there to stop children playing in the water and the pipe, which for years has been polluted by raw sewage. This is the second time this sign has been removed without notice. Councillor Duncan had it replaced last time. All Titahi Bay streams have been polluted by raw sewage due to old and cracked wastewater pipes, and it is necessary to have signs up by the stream entrances warning the public and to protect young children. The stream pipe, which now carries the flow from Anunga Creek and runs through my property at 5 Toms Road and onto the beach next to the surf club, has had raw sewage flowing through it and onto the beach. The last time it happened, it was so bad, a pond of raw sewage blocked by driftwood and logs had to be tracted free, and trucks had to fumigate the pipe and surrounding area. And the residents had to put up with the stench until this was done. 4, I believe North Wellington needs to have its own sewage treatment plant to deal with the increases in proposed new housing. Wellington Water need to start making plans now, as the Porirua treatment plant is not fit for purpose. When there is heavy rain, the waters of Titahi Bay Beach are bombarded with raw sewage in 3 ways: from the treatment plant, the Rukatane pump station overflows and Vela Street pump stations, not to mention the 5 streams that flow onto the beach. It is no wonder members of the public do not want to speak at council meetings and feel they are wasting their time. And finally, Wellington Water must be running out of Band-Aids soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. I just noted my timer went 5 minutes just as you'd finished speaking. So unfortunately, we won't be able to have opportunity for questions of members. But thank you very much, Murray, for coming in and sharing your truth as part of the public forum. I now also have a request from Graham Ebbett of the Titahi Bay Residents Association to speak in public forum. Graham, you have been given 5 minutes. Again, each a bell will be rung at the 4-minute mark and again at the 5-minute mark. Members can ask questions of clarification only and cannot enter the debate with speakers. Speakers should take note of the restrictions in the standing orders, including that matters that are subject to separate hearing processes must not be discussed, and that the speaker cannot speak on an issue they have previously spoken about. That out of the way, the floor is yours, Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Graham Ebbett. I'm the chair of the Titahi Bay Residents Association, and I'm speaking for the association. Back in January, we made an Official Information Act request with regard to a flow meter that had been removed from the old main sewage line running behind Titahi Bay South End boat sheds. We asked in our Official Information Act request when and what PCC meeting approved the sewer to be connected as a joint venture sharing overflow from the city centre, JV20 sewer, which includes flow from the Wellington City Council main trunk from Tawa, Shirton Park, Paparangi and Johnsonville. The reply, the joint venture deed between Porirua City Council, Wellington City Council, Tawa Borough Council and Hutt Council was agreed in 1986. And it further went on, in summary of the above, the original line was connected to the city centre and through Titahi Bay to discharge beyond the southern end of the beach. We are left wondering whether that's still valid, considering the new sewage plant went in and there was a plan for the main lines to go up directly from Takapawahia to the plant, and whether it now is valid for that to be taking overflow around the beach, to be taking overflow from that Wellington supply from those suburbs. And so then 1987 was the new sewage plant design and to be fed direct from Tekapoea. We are sure there must be resolutions to that effect. And we'll have to no doubt do another Official Information Act request to find that out. From the Wellington Water answers to the other questions that we had, what the last flow recording was from the flow meter, well, it was on the 30th of the 8th, 23, so it's only last year. Peak, what were the peaks? What was the peak in the previous 3 months to that event? And the answer was 168 litres per second. Question 5, was the flow meter decommissioned to remove from the Wellington Water Treatment Plant resource consent process any possible unfavourable evidence which could show the discharge of raw sewage at the outfall which is bypassing any treatment? The answer, no. Question, if not, what was the reason for removal? Answer, rationalisation of the long-term flow monitoring sites. We are left with the question, how much raw sewage is overflowing directly at the outfall? And in the map now that we can show you, so just to explain that map up there, the loop we're talking about is the loop 35, which runs from the up the western side of the harbour and round to, I've got a pointer somewhere, no, don't worry about it, around to Tite Bay along the beachfront and round to the sewage plant, which was the original line that went to was the only line going to the sewage plant. And that's what we're sort of questioning. Now, to look at the maps and the report from the officers that you've got on page 32, it makes it a bit clearer. Coming in from the right-hand side, you can see that line, 35. It's in the diagram here, it's wastewater flow to pump station, and it goes to a sump, and from that sump, raw sewage is pumped up to the, obviously up to the sewage plant and treated, overflows come down to it. So that's the point where, at that stage, if it overflows, it goes straight out. So it's raw sewage and it's no way of controlling it. So really, there's a sump flow meter said to be showing what's going to the sewage plant, but now we have no knowledge of raw sewage overflow at the outfall itself. And that's highly unsatisfactory as far as we're concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. I'm just noting there's 1 seconds until 5 minutes. So unfortunately, again, you're asking for a point of order?
I believe when there are, because he's representing the residents, wouldn't it be 10 minutes?
So I've noted 15.1 of the standing orders, currently standing orders, which say that in the third paragraph says speakers can speak for up to 5 minutes. There is no reference to any organisation. That may be the case for other parts of council business, but not for the public forum.
With the leave of the meeting, can we have a bit extra time?
So there's a point of order request for leave of the meeting to seek for what are we asking for?
Further time for questions.
How much time? 5 minutes. So leave is sought. Is there any objection? Sorry,
You can't vote.
you can't vote on this matter, Councillor Leggett.
I wasn't going to vote.
Can we just deal with the leave first and then come to your point of order if it's a separate item?
No, it's the same item.
Okay.
They're asking for 5 minutes. Even outside, where it's 10 minutes, you get 8 plus 2. So why are we asking for 5?
So leave is sought. Any objection? No objection. 5 more minutes.
We might not even need the whole 5 minutes.
Any
Was it
questions
the
for the speaker? Questions of clarification? Councillor Philo.
It was that, thanks for coming in,
Graham.
Graham, sorry, I've just been thrown a little bit here. It was regarding the last point that you made around were you saying that there was a reading for the pump station originally and now there's not? Is that what your last sort of comment was implying?
The flow meter, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
your
the flow
comment
meter.
on
They weren't able to tell us when it was actually taken out, but the last reading that was recorded was the 30th of the 8th, 23. So it's August last year.
And sorry, can you repeat where that flow meter was located?
Right behind the boat sheds, on the walkway, this flat walkway, and behind the boat sheds, there's a main sewage line underneath the walkway there, and the flow meter's in it.
Is that the boat sheds?
South end of the beach.
Oh, so
yeah.
near the treatment plant
Yes,
side.
yeah. And that was the main line going to the treatment plant, and there used to be a pond there that, well, was a tank and a pond and all sorts of arrangements to try and treat it and do things at different times.
And that would capture the flow of sewage that's coming from Titahi Bay,
Yes, going to that.
the measurements of that
Yeah.
volume. And your question in the OIA was, why was it taken out?
Yes.
And can you remind me, sorry, what was the answer?
Was deemed not necessary because of rationalisation of long-term flow monitoring sites. And we'd be asking, of course, well, where's the other site that's monitoring it?
Yeah.
There isn't one.
So rationalisation of long-term.
Councillor, I have one other question for a person who's requesting. Can I just go to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Porirua, Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's probably been answered, but I'll just ask for it to be confirmed. So you're saying your understanding of what a flow meter is for it to measure sewage
Sewage flow, yes.
flow,
Yes,
and that's now gone.
now gone.
And the last measurement was 30th of 8/23. Where did you get that from?
Official Information Act request that came from Wellington Water.
Oh, very good. We can ask Wellington Water some more questions after. Thank you very much. Thank
And I
you for
can-
coming.
Any other questions for the public speaker? None. Graham, thank you very much for coming in and for sharing your truth.
Thank you for your time, Mr Chairman.
Okay. So, conflict of interests. I call for any conflicts of interest that need to be declared. There appear to be none. We will therefore move on to item 7.1, Joint Committee Wastewater Treatment Plant Report January to March 2024. I'm going to move the motion and seconded by Councillor Duncan.
Sorry, point of order, sorry. What, the minutes of...
Oh. We don't have minutes on the item here, do we? Oh, gosh. My sincere apologies, everybody. Noting that we will have to go back a step here to go back to the previous item. Notification of extraordinary business. There are no items of extraordinary business. We'll go to the confirmation of minutes. We are asked to confirm the minutes of the first meeting of the Joint Committee held on the 28th of February 2024. I will have moved that they confirm these minutes as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? I will take Councillor Duncan. So you have, sorry, was there a point of order?
No, I have minutes, just to speak to the minutes as well.
Okay, so there was so two people to speak to the minutes, Councillor Duncan and then Councillor Philo.
No, sorry, I said.
Oh, you second, okay, right. Councillor Philo, you wish to speak to the minutes?
Yes, it was just regarding, in the minutes, it mentioned the public forum. And there was a comment from our GM for infrastructure. This was regarding the Titahi Bay Residents Association when they came here, and it was regarding the comment was made that it was really hard to find the Wellington Water. I believe it was their statement of intent and their constitution because it's housed in the Hutt City. Website. So it was just a suggestion. It sort of just came to me. I wondered whether perhaps it would be appropriate on our PCC site to provide a link that would perhaps redirect that info so that our residents would be able to find it on our site.
It seems like a very reasonable request. Any officers, do they want to talk to that at all?
Just to confirm that it's a very reasonable request, and if we haven't done that already, I'll make sure that we do. We have? Thanks, Graham. Yeah, so it's been done.
I note that while technically we only talk about the correctness of items in the minutes as opposed to actions coming from the minutes, I've allowed that to come forward. And obviously because it is not very controversial and can be easily done to help assist both councillors and the community at large as well. Any other comments on the minutes? No? Then I will put the motion. It's been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. Abstentions? I believe it carried. Now we can get to 7.1. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. It has been moved. It has been seconded. I'm going to note that at a certain point, which has been talked with councillors already, that when we get past the questions, there is a foreshadowed motion coming forward. But to allow as freedom for councillors to ask questions, we'll use this portion first to do so. So. Thank you, Jeremy, Steve, and David, for coming in. We appreciate you making the time to be here in person. And David, thank you as well from Porirua City Council. I pass over to you for any introductory comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Before I hand over to Wellington Water to speak to their report, there were a few questions put last time that I'd like to just cover off. This particular question is regarding how the funding split is made between Wellington City Council and Porirua City Council with regard to operation and capital works on the treatment plant and associated assets. So I'll do a verbal reply back to that, but I can have this formally written up and sent round to the committee within the next couple of days. With regards to the operating cost, that is split between the two councils based on the percentages of flow from each council for the previous financial year. So there is a meter at Wall Place, which is the point in the network where all of the wastewater from the Wellington northern suburbs comes in to the network here. And then a meter also obviously at the treatment plant that's measuring all of the flow coming into the treatment plant. For the split in operating funding, it is as simple as the amount of wastewater coming from Wellington versus the amount of wastewater coming from Porirua City Council district. For the current year, 23-24, that split is Wellington City Council 33.7% and Porirua City Council 66.3%. Secondly, with the capital program is based on a percentage split. With that is the split in ownership between the two councils on the joint network. So that split is Wellington City Council 27.6% and Porirua City Council 72.4%. And the split is applied based on the capital program for the joint venture assets as they sit at the start of each year. So this year, for example, that percentage has been split across $3.9 million. So there is a WCC share of 1.1 million and a PCC share of 2.89 million. I will have that typed up and sent around the committee tomorrow. But with that, I would like to pass over to Wellington Water to address their report. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd just like to take this opportunity to apologise for the delay in the notifications for the discharges in this report. We realise that our response did not meet the expectations of the councils, the community and mana whenua. And in the case of the April discharges, coinciding with a large event that was on at the time, the timing made more people feel they were at risk as well. I can assure you that we are following through on learnings from the event. I've got Dave here from Veolia. His team have done a lot of work increasing the training for their staff around notifications, requirements and also the processes around discharges. We are updating our templates from the Wellington Water side, making sure that notifications are fit for purpose to avoid the confusion that the notification on that date caused. We're also improving signage at the beach with additional signage locations have been identified. Signs have been printed. We intend to install them within the next couple of weeks. The process issues themselves that cause these discharges related to the build-up of sludge in the system, which is measured in a laboratory as mixed liquor suspended solid. That's the technical term for it. Our target for the treatment plant's around 3,500. We're currently quite close, which is good news, at around 4,000. When we experienced the discharge, the level was actually up around 5,000 to 6,000. We have issues with the plant around redundancy. There is no no redundancy in the equipment, so if we have a failure, it can lead to those sludge levels building up quickly. There is a project in the LTP to address that. We are currently underway with that project as well, with the design work, and when that is rolled out, it will give us far more resilience. Another part of the process which helps with avoiding these issues is the settability of the actual sludge in the clarifiers, and the good news is that that is actually looking really good at the moment as well. So yeah, finally, another point in the report refers to the paging system, and I've got good news there as well. That has actually been installed and is operational now. So yeah, just happy to receive any questions.
I'm now opening up for questions from our committee members. Who would like to go first? Councillor Field and Councillor Duncan.
Oh, it was just really a quick one, Mr. Chair. I wondered whether officers could explain and go into a bit of detail about the diagrams that they presented, because it didn't seem to really be any reference to it so much in the report. Page 32, I think.
Page 32. Can we go to there?
I understand they were a last-minute request after our initial report just to explain the way the pipes flowed into and out of Rukatane Point pump station. So they were there for context around that location. I'm happy to explain more if we want to go through them, but as very similar to what Mr. Ebbett explained, the flow from Titahi Bay on the detail A on that page 33 comes through a tunnel from behind the boat sheds in Titahi Bay through to Rukatane Point, which was previously to the late 1980s the treatment station, very limited treatment. When the plant was put in, that was converted to a pump station. So the flow normally comes through that tunnel, crosses over the outfall pipeline and into the pump station. When the pump station has more flow coming in than it can pump out, there's an overflow back on that short pipe section going up. So the excess flow will spill over to there and into the outfall, and those are the overflows, as we refer to them, which are detailed in the report. So this was just a graphical of how the flow comes in, and it's a little bit hard to follow, so we've added some arrows to try and help explain that.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Field?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
My first question is, with on the first diagram there, you've got the main line that is going up to the treatment plant. So wastewater flows from the pump station going up, and then on that same, there's an arrow going in the opposite direction, which is the wastewater flow from the treatment plant to the outfall. That's on page 32. So does the wastewater from the pump station and the treated wastewater that's coming down from the plant both go through that same pipe?
There are actually two pipes from the pump station which are cast into the concrete, which is in the base of the pipe, the outfall flow. So they're physically separate, but they're in the same location. So they built a tunnel through that bit that comes south and then curves around, and goes in a straight line. That's a tunnel, which has in the base of it, they've literally cast in concrete these two polyethylene pipes that take the flow from Rukatane up to the treatment plant.
Okay, all right, and in that detail A, there is the long Rukatane Point outfall, the long line, the long red line going out to the sea, and then there's that shorter one next to it that's about half the length. What is that line for?
I'm not 100% sure, but my interpretation is that's the old outfall that's physically connected. I'm not 100% sure, sorry.
Is anybody able to answer that?
We can double check. The GIS is not always sort of 100% of what connections are on the ground.
Sorry, I thought you would have put these red lines in, or whoever prepared the report.
One of my colleagues did, yeah. Yeah.
Can we also just get clarity, because there are two outfall lines, are they both currently active, that is, that they can both be utilised?
I'll double check. From having been on site, you can't see the short outfall, the shorter line there physically. So my interpretation is that it was replaced by the longer one, but I'll go back and check the drawings and the asset details.
Mr. Chair, given that these meetings are not very frequent and that this seems to be a bit of a pattern that sometimes the officers don't have an answer, I wondered if it would be appropriate that you could direct them to perhaps find the answer before the end of the meeting, whether that be contacting their colleagues via email or other ways.
Officers, I think that's a reasonable request.
This may involve going back to finding plans from the records. I'm trying to check the GIS now for an asset date.
Sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We can do our best, but I can't guarantee that we'd have the answer by.
No, before I go on to the next person speaking and maintain the speaking order, I'm just mindful of, this is reiterating the point that has been made by Councillor Filo, that it is the relatively infrequency of these reports. I know that there is challenges from time to time with technical details, but I'm hoping that officers and who are here are able to coordinate so as to give you time to get this answer sooner rather than later, and preferably during this meeting as a priority. Councillor Filo, do you have any other questions though?
Not at this stage.
Okay. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, thanks for your report, guys. Page 23, item 7, it talks about sampling errors suggesting high fecal coliforms, when in fact there weren't. Is that what am I reading that right? Item 7?
So we had a trainee operator. When I say trainee, he'd had initial training, and it appeared that his sampling technique led to false positives. So following up samples, it didn't compute. So that's what that's referring to.
So it wasn't.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Or highly unlikely to have been true.
Okay. Another question. So throughout the report, and other reports as well, we're told of planned projects, all with a price on their heads. How likely are any of those projects likely to proceed in light of the $51 million shortfall that Wellington Water have just found?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Councillor, we're still working through the implications of that news with Wellington Water, so we don't have an answer for you yet, but I assure you we'll be coming back to you with some advice around exactly that.
But they are in jeopardy?
It's too early to say. Some of these things, we can use time as a friend on some of these things, but we're still working through that. And I'm reluctant to give you advice on that just yet because we're still working through that, but we will.
Okay, that's fine. The generator, we've got a generator on site that we could refurbish. We're strapped for cash, but you're going ahead with buying a brand new one? That beggars belief.
So the existing generator was from the original plant, so several decades old and in questionable state of repair. We could try and refurbish that generator, but it's more than likely going to lead to ongoing failures, and then it won't be fit for purpose. So we've looked into it, and it is going to be more effective and efficient to use a new generator than try to refurbish an old questionable conditioned one.
Just before I move on to the next speaker, just on that last point, is there any commentary that officers want to provide with regards to the cost of refurbishing an existing site compared to purchasing new, in light of your comments saying that the cost of repairs of a refurbished unit may be more expensive than the cost of a new site, as a new provided, a new piece of hardware?
I can find out if there is a report, but what I can say is that we got external expert electrical engineers to have a look at the equipment, and the advice that they gave us was that we were better off going with a new generator rather than relying on the old equipment, and that was based on cost and reliability.
Okay. I'll allow you to go to but I do know I have Porirua for the next.
I would understand that if this was a generator that needed to be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But this is just to cover power failures, isn't it? It's just to cut in when there's a power failure. Yeah.
The issues that we have with generators, I actually am an electrician by trade from back when I was young and full of hope. And I can tell you that a new generator will be significantly more reliable, and so we could purchase a new generator and be absolutely confident that it will start when it needs to, or we could use old equipment and be always in the dark as to whether it's going to start or stop.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Porirua Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and through you. Before I ask my questions, just going back to generator, when I read that in the papers, I was actually quite surprised because I remember a conversation in this room when we were discussing the generator because there had been a power failure, and you guys Wellington Water had said that you needed to get a new one. There needed to be a new one, and around the table we had said, well, that makes sense. Get a new one because we need something for when the power is cut. Now, that was either last year or the year before. So why has it taken this long to make a decision about getting a new generator?
The electrical engineer that looked at the existing equipment had the mandate to give us advice on whether we should refurbish the generator. His advice was that we shouldn't. We should go with a new generator. So we were hopeful that we could use the old generator for exactly that reason. It'd be more. We were hoping it'd be more cost effective. It wasn't.
I think you're missing the point of my question. I'm not disputing that we need a new generator, and we all know why we need a generator, and why it was on the table was because there had been an outage and we had a power cut. And we didn't have a generator that you could switch on. So my point is, why has it taken too long? Because whether it was this year or the last year, because these are every quarter, we are talking about at least 9 months that it's taken for a decision to be made that's pretty obvious that we need a generator that works. So why did it take that long? Does it really take that long to get somebody to come in and have a look at a generator?
There would have been a number of things that were looked at in that period of time. The generator location, where it is based, and the impact on the current or the newly installed UV equipment. There would have been a number of things that would have been looked at. So it wasn't straightforward. Plug in a generator. These are not small bits of equipment. These are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm just grateful that we didn't have another power cut and it didn't affect anybody that was life-threatening. But my question to you today is going back to, and first of all, thank you for the apology about the lack of notification when there was that discharge, and actually was on the Saturday as well as the Sunday, and in your report only references Sunday when the Grand Traverse was on. It doesn't include when we had a big portion of the Titahi Bay community there for Kura Street event that was played out on and essentially, I let you answer it, but essentially why I'm saying that is because when this was made public, we were given... Why did it happen? Because it didn't rain.
So on page 25, shows the sludge build up in the sludge abstracted from the plant. You'll see in January 24, we removed 764 tonnes, and then it dropped away to 452 in February, then 467 in March. That was due to failure of equipment at the plant, which meant that we weren't able to remove as much sludge as was needed for the plant to be in balance.
So that took 4 months. Because you're referencing January.
Yeah, so it's a biological process. So yes, it takes time for it to build up in the system, and once it's built up, it's extremely difficult for us to remove it. Yeah, quickly.
Okay, so my next question, and then I'll come back to your answer, is what is sludge? And I'll tell you why I'm asking you that. I know what sludge is, but I'd like to understand in your language, what is sludge?
I'll take this one. So we've used the term in the report, activated sludge. So the sludge is microorganisms that are originally grown from the sewage.
So it's sewer?
No, they're microorganisms.
Okay.
So it's different from if you take wastewater that's, comes in the pipe and you just settle it. We'd call that primary sludge because that's literally sludge from sewage. This is microorganisms that have been held in the process for 15 or 20 days. That's the average kind of age. And basically their job is to use the incoming sewage as food and reproduce more microorganisms. We take excess microorganisms
I know
away.
what sludge is. Thank you for saying that. But the main reason why I asked you that is because when this incident happened and we asked for a please explain, we were told that it was partially treated. It was partially treated sewage that had been discharged. That's what we were told when we raised our concerns, that one, it hadn't been notified. And we could see the water, we could see that it was a huge discharge. And we were told, because we had said there's more sewage going in there, and we were told by Wellington Water, no, it was partially treated sewage. Now, you've just told me that sludge is not sewage. And yet in our papers, what we are now being told is that what happened those 2 days of that incident, it was caused by the discoloration of sludge. So who's telling us porkies? Like, you can't say one thing when the actual thing happened, then you have time to write a report and you make it colourful to suit the purposes of what you're trying to say. So now, tell me, why did it happen? Because the other thing that you did tell us, what we were all concerned about, it was an awesome day. The sun was shining and it was an awesome day on the Saturday, and so was the Sunday. Not quite as awesome as the Saturday, but there had been no rain at all, and yet we had this huge discharge into our coastal marine waters. And we've been told 2 explanations. Now, what do we believe?
I'd mentioned earlier on that we've looked at our template. So there's a template that's used to send out that response. So we are making sure that the templates that the templates that we're using cover off all the different scenarios of potential discharges. This one in particular highlighted some issues with that. So to be clear, the partially treated sewage is referring to that treatment, the treatment of the sewage in that part of the process. It is partially treated. Ultimately, when it's fully treated, it gets discharged back to the landfill. We waste it through the centrifuge back to the landfill. So,
But that's not what
there was no
is
intention
saying.
to mislead anyone.
That's not what this report is saying. This report today, what you're telling us, is what caused it is discoloration of the sludge. So the story has changed. The narrative has changed.
I don't believe it has. It was wastewater sludge that had carried over through the clarifiers.
Yes, but the was that it was partially treated, and it was in an effort to calm us down that it wasn't raw sewage. But you've made it really clear to me today that sludge isn't sewage.
Yeah. May I try and explain it in layman terms? Sludge is the process.
Oh, you don't have to tell me that.
No.
What I'm looking for is why have we been told to?
The carryover from the clarifier, which is a flocculation, is a byproduct of the sludge process of degrading the thing, and that's what carried over into the liquid stream that went to the outfall. So it's a byproduct of the sludge treatment process, and I think it was just the terminology that it was a sludge process that had failed, but the discharge was the microorganisms in the floc state that went into the liquid stream, the microorganisms to add to the process, because it's a biological process and we need microorganisms and food. The sludge process, which is what caused the issue, the build-up of sludge, caused a carry-over in the last process of separating the sludge from the liquid stream, and it's a byproduct of that process that was actually discharged in there, which is a flocculant of microorganisms that carried over into the liquid stream. So I apologise for the language in there, but it's just the two streams. So partially treated liquid went in there because we couldn't guarantee that the full process had gone. But it was all UV'd. We have confidence about the microorganisms that would cause harm was zapped by the UV.
So I'm trying to be very respectful when really I'm really hōhā, because I just feel like you guys are just trying to do a sales pitch to us so that we can accept what you're saying. But I have to say that it really is affecting the credibility of your report, because your office gave us an explanation and then you've changed it in this report. That becomes a public paper. But thank you for answering my question.
Thank you, Porirua Kelly. I'll go to Representative Allen.
Firstly, on page 23.6, could you just explain to me what a BOD is?
Sorry, BOD is a abbreviation for biochemical oxygen demand, which is a measure of the organic strength. It's a standard way of explaining how much oxygen the water would suck out of the
Just wanted to know what the acronym stood for. Secondly, on page... Oh, actually, it refers to page 25, but at the last meeting you said you had odour monitors in at Porirua Street, and you were going to report back to us at this meeting with the hydrogen sulphide readings, but I can't find them in the report.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have that data. We'll have to dig that out.
Well, when can we get that? Because that was promised for this meeting.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it myself, so I'll have to chase it within a week. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
I just want to ask you a question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
The report 7.1 refers to the appendix, which is report 7.2. Can I ask questions on 7.2 now, or do I have to wait?
Well, I mean, I'm going to have to put it as a separate item.
That's okay, I can wait.
It might be better to let that wait until that.
That's the end of my questions. Thank you.
So I'll have Representative Phillip and Councillor Phillip, then Councillor Leggett. Apologies.
I have a kind of a question that would actually go into the financial, but it does have to do with what they were talking about, officers were talking about with regards to the sludge. Would that be okay, Mr. Chair?
I think proceed ahead. If it needs to be clarified at another part of the meeting, then we'll deal with it then.
Cool. So it is about point 25, which is regarding the graph, and when we look at February and March, so did I read it right that in February there was a mechanical failure within the sludge dewatering system? Is that right? So basically it wasn't able to pull the sludge out, and there was still a lot of water. Have I got that correct? in those graphs there in February and March.
I believe it was there are two centrifuge machines, and I believe one of them was unable to be operated. So that was the difference.
So is that then the, in point 10, I believe it was, you brought up constraints within the process system? Is that what you're referring to, that machine that's not working?
In the earlier paragraph about the system, that refers to the whole train of, first of all, those centrifuge machines, then the bins that they go into, and then the mechanics of moving them in and out, and then the hours at the landfill operation. So it's all quite, everything has to go right sort of situation. And when one part of that system is not working effectively, we can't remove as much sludge.
Right, so then the projects, because I'm sorry, I'm going back a little bit here. I'm going back to point 10. So it says that the high levels of the MLSS were due to several factors, including operational constraints caused by project works in the treatment plant. So what were those project works?
So there'd been a number of projects underway over the preceding period. So there was the hydraulic upgrade, work on the milli screens. There'd been some work undertaken on the chemical system. Well, actually, I'm not too sure what was the chemical systems, but the maintenance works on the dewatering equipment, and as well as the UV upgrade as well. So there'd been a number of projects that have been in train in the time leading up to that.
So because there were those maintenance issues, maintenance being addressed with all those different projects, you're saying that's what was, how did that constrain the
So resources were stretched looking after all the different projects as well as the maintenance and everything else that was going on. So I'd liken it to we have to keep the plane in the air, if you like, while we're working on it and upgrading it, and all of these projects that go on while we're keeping the plant running have an impact on our ability to maintain it.
So is what you're saying, because of all those operations that were going on, those upgrades and maintenance to that list that you just said, is that why the sludge got off balance? It wasn't being monitored as much. Is that what you're saying?
No, there was compounding factors. So there was the projects that were going on, and there was also the failure of the actual dewatering equipment meant that it built up.
So the failure of the equipment plus
compounding factors.
Compounding.
Prior to that,
Okay. Because you did also in that same point 10 mention process changes. So what are you referring to with the process changes?
I'll probably have to defer that to Dave. Can you do that? So
it says
just
here,
from memory, that some of the process changes, obviously we with the hydraulic works that went on there.
when were they taken? I thought that was a while ago.
Yeah, so the additional flow that goes into the plant now, that's meant we've had to do more balancing of the clarifiers, things like that. So there was some process changes there, ensuring that hydraulic loads spread evenly, as well as the balancing of the different return activated sludge and waste activated sludge. All of that needs to be rebalanced for the higher flows.
So with the upgrade to the hydraulic flow that's coming in, so that's a stronger flow now, right? That brings in more. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can take the full capacity of the network into the treatment plant now.
Because of that, you had to balance out what was going on in the clarifiers because more was coming in. Is that what you're saying?
Balance it out over the rest of the plant, yep.
Yeah, that's correct. It's so when there's any adjustment to flow or load, the plant needs to be reset to cope with that, and it's a biological process, and that takes time. So we don't have immediate results. So we have to take a lot of samples to make sure that the microorganism and the food ratios are right, and the settling properties of the clarifiers aren't compromised. So it's not like you switch on a light and off. We've got to actually monitor just the easiest way to explain it is that the wastewater treatment plant is your stomach. And if there's any imbalance in there, these releases gases and all this sort of stuff, we have to monitor that and adjust the plant slowly and to ensure that it can cope and not what we call turnover and start smelling and doing all the bad things.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. So can you just remind me how long that the hydraulic piece of equipment has been used and has been going for?
The hydraulic upgrade work to get the more flow through to the plant, that was put in late 2023 from memory.
So are you saying this is just still teething issues from 2023?
No, I'm not saying that. There was an issue when that work was going on. They had to slow down the sludge removal.
That's right. I mean,
Then they managed to catch up, and then a couple of things have gone wrong, and the sludge levels built up again to the point where they overflowed in March and April.
So sorry, just jumping back to my original point about point 25. So where it's got February 24 and March 24, is that the issue here? Is that there wasn't that much sludge that was going to the landfill? That's what February and March are saying.
So February and March, that's when the one centrifuge was out of service.
And is that why, because I note that there was an odour complaint around that same time, is that because of this issue?
Yes.
The sludge being not able to be extracted?
No, the odour complaints are generally weather related. So if you get a very light northerly wind, then odour from the plant can blow back across those new residents in Piccadilly Street.
So my reference to the financial report, it was just to clarify, if I just go there now, there mentions on page 60.8 that there have been 244K higher in budget for landfill charges. So I'm just wondering, why are the landfill charges for the sludge so much out of balance when you haven't been taking as much sludge to the landfill?
I'm just mindful that this may also be an issue with politics in the council with regards to the landfill, but if both can answer at this stage, that would be fine by me.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that because I would have thought if we were sending less to the landfill, there'd be less landfill charges. It's a tonnage.
That's
it's a
exactly
tonnage,
what
so
I thought.
That's what
yeah,
we thought.
I can't answer that. Sorry.
Any commentary from politics in the council in terms of the landfill side?
I'm just going to check with CFO that this isn't related to the budget for Wellington Water to bring sludge into the landfill is set based on the 22-23 charge, but we have put our charges up in July 2023, and just wondering whether this is simply because the budget set for sludge coming in has not been altered for that increase in budget, if that's a possibility.
So it was a forecast.
So I'll
wasn't-
let you
yeah.
elaborate on that, but while we try and answer, unless you've got an answer at this stage.
Well, through you, Chair, I think it is a timing issue. So the annual plan would have been prepared prior to the change in gate fees and so on.
That is something that does happen. We have some forecasts for the current year which are based on previous years, but not necessarily taking the July increases into account in the various fees.
I might, Councillor, feel it may be more useful to follow those lines of questions up when we get to the reporting part of it.
Sure.
Okay.
That's all I have for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Leggett.
Just a point of clarification, not in a sludgy way, but Rukatani Point Pump Station, can you just remind us about the capacity in terms of the pumping capacity of that station?
From memory, it's about 20 litres a second of average dry weather flow on a day like today, and up to, I believe it's 140 litres a second of wet weather flow
So
capacity.
that's the capacity of the station to pump. So when it was pumping at 168, when the flow was measured at 168 litres per second, there would have been overflow.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So can you tell us where that overflow takes place? Or does it take place in different places? Does it take place at the pump station itself?
Yeah, the main place the overflow takes place is it was on that detail A.
Yeah, I've got it.
The manhole to the right of the short pipe, which I've been able to check is a 1960 pipe, so the original outfall. A pump station can pump, the flow spills over into that short outfall and then the longer outfall.
Yep, okay.
So it's at that overflow.
So it is
at the
at
outfall point. So
Yep.
so the two flows, the treated water and the raw stuff, are separate until right at that outfall.
Yeah, okay, thanks. A second question, just about the UV plant. You've said that there are system problems with that plant. When are they likely to be fixed? And at the moment, at times we're using the old plant, that's correct? So what are those problems? I would have thought they would have been worked out by now.
Yeah, I would have thought they would have been worked out too. So we're working with a supplier on that. So yeah.
Is that likely to be a long-term issue, or is it where they have to send back for parts overseas and it takes another 3 months? And
The issue, I believe, relates to some of the ancillary equipment that sort of controls the flow across it. So,
okay.
so they there was when we were commissioning the plant, some issues that we had with commissioning, and we thought they were cleared up, but we've had a couple where they were cleared up, and now we've had a couple of other instances where they've come up again. And the problem is that they don't happen all the time, and so it's a matter of catching it in the act, if you like. So that's why we're after hours we're putting it over across to the TAC, so that we can be confident that it's not going to cause an issue after hours. And then during the day when we're there, we can keep an eye on it. So we're just trying to catch it in the act, if you like. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Porirua Kelly.
Just staying on what you were just answering for Councillor Leggett. So the question I asked you, getting back to that discharge on that day, it wasn't raining. It had been a fine day, and you're saying it's 20 litres, was that what you just said? 20 litres and 168 when it's raining? So why did we get the discharge?
So the flows I was talking about were the flows from Titahi Bay to Rokutane Point. So totally different, yeah, into the plant from that Titahi Bay catchment. Yeah, it's the flow going the other way. But yes.
Okay, well, I still don't believe that you've answered me the why of why it actually discharged on two beautiful.
It discharged because the levels of sludge were not able to settle in the clarifiers, and some of that microorganisms, the brown flocks, went over the edge of the clarifiers, through the outfall and into the coast.
And how long did it take before you realised that was happening? Because at the time, I believed that it was 23 hours before anyone was told, but I couldn't see that anywhere in the report.
Our operator knew within 15 minutes of it actually happening, and we get an alarm from the UV to indicate that the UVT had dropped, and it's the only alarm to indicate that something is happening. He was on site within 15 minutes, and he adjusted the plant. Then he went down to the outfall to see what would the flow. The notification was the issue. So the notification to Wellington Water was delayed because of the training that we've now put in place. I think it was 12 hours, before we actually notified Wellington Water, which was the delay from our side. No, 23, sorry. Yeah.
There was a delay at my end as well. So
I knew there was 23 hours.
Put my hand up for that.
You know, that's really hard to believe, that he knew within 15 minutes, but nobody else knew for 23 hours. I'd like that included in the minutes, please.
Thank you, Porirua Kelly. Councillor Fiddle, you had questions?
Yeah, actually just following on from what you said. Okay, so just, is there a way, so if he knows in 15 minutes, is there any way to remedy the issue? Or it's just got to keep going until it clears, is that?
I should say, I want to clarify, 15 minutes from when the alarm went off, we don't know how long the event had been going, but when the UVT alarmed, and he reacted to that alarm and was on site within 15 minutes, and that's where he noticed the carryover from the clarifiers and made adjustments to the plant to stop it. But it does take time, and so he lived close to the plant, so he was there quite quickly.
Okay, so he was able to.
Make adjustments to the plant, but it's not instant, as I said.
How long?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check to see how long it corrected itself. But
Okay. Thank you. And just that's great that you found that information, Officer Hutchinson. Can you just confirm that line that we were speaking? That was the short line that you were talking about. So did you say that was the original outfall from 1968, and is that the outfall that comes off the pump station? So if there's an overflow and it can't pump up to the treatment plant, does it go out through that little line?
Yeah, so looking at GIS online at the moment, when the asset details for that shorter line say that it was installed in 1960,
Oh, okay.
and it's a 600 millimetre pipe, and the asset details for the longer pipe say it was installed 1989, and it's an 800 millimetre pipe. So my inference from that is that the short line is used for the overflow. What I can't confirm is whether there's actually a discharge point at the end of that short line or whether it connects into the long one. I believe it connects into the long one from having been on site a few years ago, but it's not shown in this level of detail of GIS drawing, which is what we'd have to go back to the paper plans to do, which would take some time.
So if I can go to point 11, which mentions wet weather. There have been a number of discharge incidents and events mentioned in this report, and I'm going to 11. What I wanted to know is, of the dates that you've mentioned, where there have been events, March and April, which were due to wet weather? Which of these events were due to wet weather? So,
I'm not able to answer that now. I'd have to find out, but yeah, we know that that those dates in question, there was reduced transmissivity, I think.
Yes.
That's how they were picked up. So I'll have to check, but
look at 4.14. It's got some actual discoloration dates that were noted.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whether they're wet weather events, we'd have to come back to you on that. Sorry.
Okay, I think that's important to know whether they were dry or wet weather.
Yeah, I just to reiterate the point, I think that point 17 obviously talks about events that had been reports had been prepared for. So, and it may assist in future reports, whether it be a table or some other description, to just give clarity to committee members about which of these reported events of discharge being spotted, as well as the types of discharge events that have occurred, so as to avoid confusion when asking for clarity at this table.
Can I go on?
Yes, please.
It'd be good to know that too before the end of the meeting, if possible.
I think that that's a reasonable expectation to be able to come back with some clarity around the point that the questions were just recently raised by Councillor Phelan around those discharge events. Councillor Phelan?
So point 16 mentioned that these events were mitigated before resulting in a full sludge carryover. My question was, how were they mitigated? I'm wondering if that was was that the point that you were speaking about, the person who came in and made those adjustments? Was that the mitigation you're referring to? And was there anything else besides what you've said?
No, that was about it. He came in and adjusted some weirs and made some adjustments to the biological process to reduce the carryover, and then end it. I'm not sure exactly, but it was just...
So there are so from the aeration basin, the flow splits into 3 clarifiers. So in most of those cases, it would have been one of the clarifiers where the sludge blanket was high.
Yeah.
And so he would have reduced the flow going to that clarifier to ease the pressure on it, to balance more of the flow to the other 2, just to try and juggle, keep the sludge within the plant.
Could officers please explain and just expand on what the daily effluent TSS results are, and they also reference what no more than 10 grams per metre cubed means.
Which point is this in regards to?
That's point 16.
Okay.
Same point. I've
Yep.
got a few questions in that point.
So the total suspended solids is a measure of how much sediment or cloudiness is in the effluent. So that's a sample that's taken over the 24-hour period. So there's a little auto sampler that takes a sample every so many minutes or so many cubic meters. So it's proportionate for that 24 hours. And the consent for this plant is, I believe it's 30 grams per cubic metre on average. So that's the level which was assessed for environmental effects as the average acceptable discharge. So normally if it's down at 10, that's a very good level of treatment overall over that 24 hours. Whereas the 2 events in paragraph 15, 500 is clearly a high level, and 69 is much higher than you'd normally expect from treatment process over a day. So we're just trying to. The point of that was to say that to give a relativity of the scale of the amount of activated sludge microorganisms that were lost to the environment.
Okay, thank you. Where do you collect your samples from?
There's an auto sampler machine right at the end of the plant, just past the UV, and that takes the liquid sample for suspended solids and BOD. And then for fecal coliforms, the microorganism, that's a grab sample just taken once a day by for analysis.
Where's the grab sample taken from?
I believe it's the same place, after the UV treatment.
So, have I got this right? You're actually not taking samples from the ocean or near the outfall, you're taking it from the treatment plant?
The regular sampling point is at the end of the treatment plant, yes. Once a month, there'll be a routine sampling done either side and some distance away in the ocean. And for at least one of these events, they went in and took samples in the ocean afterwards.
Okay, so do you know which of these events they took samples from the ocean? There's a few dates there, a couple in April and a couple in March.
Not off the top of my head. It's in the detailed incident reports.
Well, we don't have those detailed incident reports for these dates.
The one for
You only have the 6th.
The other one's been put online, so we can find it and clarify what sampling was done for what events.
So, is your official analysis then that for all these dates mentioned in point 16, because there's a few there, that a sludge carryover didn't occur, it was discoloration, and that these events were consent compliant? Is that correct?
Yes, that's our interpretation.
So what kind of a sample reading would raw untreated sewage attain?
The raw sewage would typically be around 250 grams per cubic metre.
And so I'm guessing that wouldn't be considered compliant within the consent, obviously.
No, it wouldn't be. No.
Okay, well, point 39, if I'm going to just go to that, confirms that there was a raw sewage discharge that occurred for 8 hours on the 13th to the 14th of April, and for 15 hours on the 12th to the 13th of April. So I'm just wondering how, in point 16, where it mentions the 12th of April, how that could possibly be compliant within the consent and simply discoloration. This is from Rukutane Point.
Yeah, the discharge from Rukutane Point is not covered by the treatment plant discharge consent. So they're different discharges.
No, I get that, but would a sample have been taken either side of the ocean that day on the 12th and the 13th to see what the reading was? Surely data would have been taken on that day if it's been going for 15 hours.
The overflows are not regularly sampled.
The overflows are not regularly sampled.
No.
Pump station.
The
For pump
station network overflows are not under the same sampling.
Is anybody notified when a pump station overflows?
Notifications are made to regional council and a couple of other organisations, yes.
Okay, and so the public's never notified?
No, the public's not routinely notified of network overflows during wet weather.
So you notify the public when there is partially treated, sometimes disinfected water. You'll notify them for that into the ocean, but you won't notify them when there's raw sewage that has gone in for 15 hours and 8 hours within 3 days. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. The treatment plant, any treatment plant discharge, we try and notify. For wet weather network overflows, because there's a range of contaminants during wet weather, the general advice is to take care for swimming and recreational activities for those 2 to 3 days after heavy rain.
I wonder which one you'd rather swim in, the untreated sewage or the stuff that comes out of the treatment plant.
I'm going to ask.
I'll just remove that.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to ask. Can I ask a question that's related to this, which is actually mentioned in paragraph 46? You alluded to in your previous answer that it is a separate reporting regime in terms of discharge events with regards to the wastewater treatment plant. Now, one of the areas of work that Wellington Water is looking at is around a network discharge consent. That would cover this pump station as part of that consent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, carry on.
currently, when that pump station overflows, is that consented within the RMA?
No, it's not currently consented within the RMA.
Okay, so do you think it is appropriate then to take samples when there is a pump station overflow of raw sewage for many, many hours? That what I'm trying to get here is, if there is, why do you notify the public? You said for health reasons. Wouldn't this be in the same category, if not more? That makes sense to me. Maybe it doesn't to you. I'm trying to get clarification, please.
So across the region, the Wellington region, and across the country, there are hundreds of pumps. When we have a rain event like the ones that are shown on that table there, there'll be numerous pump stations throughout the Wellington region that will overflow. And so that is why the standard advice from Regional Public Health, Ministry of Health, is to avoid swimming directly after a heavy rainfall event, to take caution there. So this is a national problem, I guess is what I'm telling you.
So no need to notify, just it's rain, don't go swimming. Is that the notification that you're saying?
That is the practice across the country.
Any other questions, Councillor Filo?
Yes, I do actually, and it's on the same point.
Okay.
Sorry, these two events that happened, it seems like over the course of 3 days. For the duration, you have got 0.6 hours, and then you have 0.4 hours for the event that occurred on the 13th and the 14th. Now, 0.6 of an hour, I'm just looking for clarity here on how you interpret that. Because when I first look at that, I think, 0.6 hours, that must be like 40 minutes, 0.6 of an hour. But when you look at the timings, it says 15 hours.
So my interpretation of that is that it was not a continuous discharge, that it started and it stopped and it started and it stopped. And arguably it should be one line for 1 hour over those two, but for some reason we've entered them as two lines. But it was not a continuous discharge. It came and went over that period.
So the one on the 12th of April started at 1:46, is what it says, PM. And then it ended the next morning, the 13th of the 4th, at 3:59 a.m. So, sorry, I'm a bit lost. I'm a bit lost. How is that 1 hour?
I'd have to check, but I am assuming that it's the cumulative time that the overflow probe would have been wet, if you like, and so that would start counting every time it's wet. But we can confirm that and come back to you.
Mr. Chair, in previous meetings, I have asked for Rukutane Point to be given more detail around the issues there, and we were told on the 7th of November that it might be good that this is one of many in the city. Not to say that is that's a pump station of many. I think you use that word, and that may be a comparison of different of the different whatever is going on in the city. A comparison maybe of Parramatta or Plymouth and also of Rukutane Point, just to give us a picture of what's going on. We can't get the volume at the moment. That's what it says in point 39. So it's hard to get a real picture of the issue, which is my frustration here. So it looks to me like 15 hours, but then you're saying, oh, well, it wasn't wet for that long, the reading of it. So it would be, was that work prepared, do you know? Because
Officers, was the work prepared?
There was a short summary sent between officers yesterday.
Yeah, we've got a brief response that can be circulated around the committee.
Is there any opportunity to actually give a summary of it verbally? While it's happening, do you have any other questions? Otherwise, I have Representative Allen who has a question. Oh, okay. Then Councillor Philo.
Can I ask a
Kelly,
question?
and then I'll come back to Councillor Philo.
Who is the report writer of these reports from Wellington Water? Because could I suggest respectfully that whoever writes them attends our hui, so that when we ask a question and you don't know it, they would be able to answer the question?
There's quite a number of contributors to the report. There's our project management team, there's our major projects team, there's our customer operations group that are providing this particular set of data, there's the operational team that sits within my group, and then of course there's the Veolia team.
Sorry, to just follow up on that question, to use parlance that's used sometimes, who would be the single individual that would hold the pen on regard to the report from Wellington Water's perspective?
To the treatment plant, that would be me, and to the network, that would be Steve, that would have the expertise on that.
Right.
So then with that regard, any questions that we're asking regarding those, you two should be able to answer. Well, I was going to actually suggest that even, but I'll let you answer first.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, we have done our best to provide additional data that's come up each month, and I guess each month we provide that data, and then it leads to more questions and more depth into that data. So, you know, we can, I guess, go away and come back with more data again, but yeah.
So then maybe what we could do, and it is a practice in Wellington City Council, that if there are any questions of the officers, that they ask them prior to the hui. The problem is that we don't get our papers early enough to be able to read our papers, get our questions, and then circulate. So it would be a double-edged process that we would need our papers earlier, which would mean your reports would need to come in earlier. So then you mightn't feel like you're in the hot seat when you sit here, because at least you'd know what you're going to be asked.
That would have no objection from me.
Agreement on that front. However, I am mindful that we will work. That is a very good suggestion. I'm looking to our Porirua City Council officers to see how that can be met, considering the infrequency of the meetings compared to other meetings and the timeframes. We are also mindful that these are quarterly reports as well, but I think the message has been loudly received. David, have you got an answer? Okay, so I'll let you read that response out, noting that you are going to provide a version of that in writing to the committee members, and then I'll come back to Councillor Filo. Does that make sense? David?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we had 3 questions here from Councillor Filo. Firstly, the budget for the White House Road work. The answer was the estimate for the White House Road stages 3 and 4, and the most recent LTP advice is 11,029,000. Question 2 was request for explanation in detail regarding the funding contribution from Wellington City Council and PCC, which was the opening statement I made before turning over to Wellington Water. And the third question was regarding a list of Wellington Water project works for Porirua, including the order of priority from Wellington Water, noting where the JV assets sit, including Rukatani Point Pump Station. So this is the total list of works and looking for the position at which Rukatani Point sits with respect to upgrade in the LTP. And more context regarding the issues at Rukatani Point. So that's answered with a table of various pump stations, the overflow from estimated overflows from each of those pump stations, and that could probably be best forwarded around as a more complete answer.
Which is worst?
The worst one is pump station 20, which is out here in Littleton Ave.
Okay. Councillor
The big
Filo.
one.
I'm going to just go back to Councillor Filo first before I go to Poe Kelly's point about why it's worse.
Okay.
But Councillor Filo, are you satisfied that if the table comes around within the next 24 hours to the committee members, would that satisfy you at least in that request? Or do you want that table to be printed off and sent around to committee members now?
It's okay.
I
Look,
know.
sorry, what was wrong?
And I am going to try and maintain order here because I'm trying to keep a speaking order. So, Councillor Filo, then Poe Kelly.
So just to sort of talk a bit more to the Rukatani Point pump station, and just to address the members of the public who have also spoken regarding the flow meter, I think was what it was called. What I want to know is if there's no longer at the pump station any measure, any instruments that can measure the flow that's coming in or out of that pump station, why was the other piece of equipment that that Graham mentioned, why was that decommissioned in last year?
There is still flow metering equipment coming out of the pump station. So, and there's a level meter to know that when there's an overflow. So that's still in place.
Okay. So coming out, so we can
Yeah, we
can
know
measure.
we know what's going out of that pump station. And so with measuring flows in pipes and catchments, we do a couple of approaches. One is we'll use short-term flow metering campaigns where we'll have a lot of flow meters and that type of thing. And that gets used for the hydraulic model calibration, which gets used for planning purposes, so that if you want to add thousands of people to that catchment, we can plug that into the model and see what happens. So we have a hydraulic model that we use for that planning purposes, and we do short-term flow metering over a period of months to input to that, just to see what's happening. In this case, we had a couple of flow meters in Titahi Bay on a long-term basis, and the value from the long-term data was not considered to be worth spending money to keep going and maintaining it every month.
Oh, so what roughly would the cost have been?
A hydraulic model that's calibrated to the wider network, and in this case we took out that flow meter and we took out a few others around the region to minimise the amount of cost that we were putting into flow monitoring. I don't know the cost off the top of my head of maintaining a flow meter.
Okay, so you can measure what goes out, is what I heard. So if there is a discharge, like the ones that happen on the 12th, the 13th and the 14th, that's gone out. So do you actually know the volume that has gone out from that discharge? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we measure the flow that the pump station pumps up to the treatment plant, and we know from level when, how many minutes it's spilling, it's overflowing, but we don't have a flow meter on the overflow. Do you follow that? Is that clear enough?
Not really. No, it's not really. Do you?
Unless officers want to give it another go, then do you have another way of perhaps asking the question to get clarity? Give you that advice or suggestion.
Sorry, if you could, I'm not. Say it in another way.
Okay, so we know we have a flow monitor on the outlet from the pump station that pumps up to the treatment plant. So that goes up and down, and we know when that gets to its maximum because it flatlines. And we have a separate instrument that tells us when the level's got to a certain point which it's going to be overflowing. So we know the duration of when the overflows are happening, and we know how much flow we're pumping up to the treatment plant, but we don't know with any precision how much flow we're not pumping to the treatment plant, how much flow is being overflowed.
Yep.
So I have Porirua Kelly after you, but do you have any other questions, Councillor Ford?
Not on this matter.
Okay. Porirua Kelly.
So before I ask my question about why is Littleton Ave worse, what you've just said, so essentially that flow meter that Graham presented to us about is measuring the sewage that's coming out from the Vella Street pump station, or pump, whatever it is.
That would have been measuring flow from the wider catchment. It's not just Vella Street, it's White House and other parts.
All of it?
Probably, I don't know.
But now that that's been taken out, what is now measuring it?
Well, as I said, we know what comes out of the pump station.
But you don't know what's going into our waterways?
Not exactly. Yeah.
Isn't that crucial information that we need?
From a point of view of managing the network, it's not crucial information, no.
For health and safety and for residents and who are using the beach and the waterways, get their kaimoana it is. But anyway, if you could just, because I don't think we're going to agree on that, can you just tell me, why is Littleton Ave the worst one?
Because it's a much larger volume.
Going where?
Going into the harbour.
So because it's going into the harbour and it's much larger, you're saying that that's worse. And I'm not disputing that that's a huge problem. What I'm disputing is that the amount of sewage and discharges that's going into Titahi Bay, nobody swims in our harbour. That's been history for a long time. You can't get any kaimoana out of there. That's been history for a long time. But Titahi Bay is used regularly. We have surfers, we have swimmers, and we have divers that use that. Are we going to wait until the problem at the bay is as bad as it is in Porirua Harbour before we prioritise stopping that sewage and those discharges going into Titahi Bay?
While maintaining good order, I'm going to ask officers to respond to that, but I'm also mindful that that is also a point that I think all members of the Porirua and Wellington City Council should be mindful of with regards to the investments that they put in as part of the long-term plans.
I'm trying to understand how you prioritise that Littleton is worse, is the biggest problem. That was all.
Officers, do you want to take a chance at answering that?
The prioritisation was done to build that storage tank for the city centre because there was a much larger discharge going into the harbour, the inner harbour. So
that's been done though?
Yes.
So what's the big thing that's out there?
It's not built. Guys, I'm going to try and, again, maintain good order for this meeting because obviously we're getting to 3:38 and at a certain point within the next 20 minutes I'm going to have to put a motion to extend because it's most likely that we're going to go over. So I'm only wasting question time. Are there any other questions? Councillor Philo.
Sorry, I just wanted to also address the other member of the public who spoke, and if officers could give her some clarity. So I believe it was in the last meeting where the chair asked for whether, or maybe it was the 7th, not sure, but the chair asked for officers to prepare or give commentary to the options that Mrs. Wright was presenting on, whether they were viable. And I note that, I think it's point 45, you mention White House Road sewer, and it seems like there's a concept design that's been done, and I see that was what was also corresponded to her in her OIA. So can you give some, I know it's not formalised yet, but can you give us an indication whether these concept designs have taken into account or involved the suggestions that that Mrs. Wright gave?
I haven't seen the concept design myself, so I can't clarify that at this meeting. Mrs. Wright's comments were certainly heard and conveyed to the project team.
Well, forgive me, but I'm not sure whether it does seem like that because in those meetings, the chair and a few other councillors had asked for you to get in touch with not only Mrs. Wright, but the neighbours that were also involved. And it doesn't seem like that happened. Instead, it seemed like she had to put through an OIA before she got answers. And within her OIA, nothing really answered anything for her. So, again, could we get some clarity for her? This is a member of the public who's been here. She turned up on the 7th of November to address this issue. It had to do with her house. If we could not treat that so lightly, but rather promptly give her some clarity, and her neighbours as well. Whether you've considered it in the design or it's not, I know it's not formalised, but just to give that information.
I think that's, I mean, I share your frustration, yeah. How perturbed it is that we are asking, in effect, the same request as before in terms of clarity or with meeting with affected property owners around this design, notwithstanding the points made in the paragraph of the report on notice. But it is, I think, in terms of maintaining good faith where it can be achieved, to ensure that we can move through with projects that are meaningful for a number of stakeholders. Councillor Field, do you have any other questions?
I do. I'm just assessing whether I. I was curious. It mentioned in point 21, I think, that the the report for April was sent off to Greater Regional Wellington. It is the end of May. I just wondered why we haven't been sent that report as well.
Is it possible for that report to be circulated to the community members within 24 hours?
That report is on our website at the moment, so we can circulate a link to that report.
Thank you. Councillor Field? No more questions. Anyone else? I'm going to hold off my questions until the next item because they're actually pertinent to that space. But I am going to just close questions at this stage. I understand that there is a foreshadowed motion. I'm going to give the opportunity to Councillor Field if she wishes to speak to that foreshadowed motion.
I would like to move a motion or move an amendment.
Yes.
To note that the Joint Committee is concerned about the inadequate and credibility of the information provided in this report. And second point is that the Chief Executive of Porirua City Council instruct Wellington Water Limited without delay to complete this report in its entirety and provide this to the Porirua City Council and Wellington City Council for consideration in the long-term planning process. And in particular, that Wellington Water Limited complete the report on Rukatane Point, that should say pump station, that was commissioned through the chair at the meeting of the Joint Committee on the 7th of November 2023.
So that is the motion for all those committee members that the item is on the screen as well. Notwithstanding, it is moved. Do we have a seconder? Porirua Kelly, it is moved, it is seconded. Does anyone want to speak to this amendment before we go to the vote? You've had your opportunity to speak to...
Oh, sorry, I was just giving the...
Oh, so you just...
I had to have it seconded before I had to...
You are quite right. You have the right to actually expand on the rationale. Sorry, apologies. You have the floor.
Okay, so there's a few points, Mr. Chair, in my amendment. The first one is around inadequate information, and I think that's been demonstrated not only in this hui on a few times today, but in many of our hui that have come up, and this has been mentioned in writing as well by members of the public. Not all of the information that I requested has come through from previous meetings. So that was the inadequate. Credibility, I'm not sure I really accept a few things in this report. I mentioned those timings for the Rukatane Point pump station discharges. That seemed a bit misleading. If you were to look at that, it didn't seem like a long period of time, whereas the actual times were. It just seems like the report has been downplayed. The event that happened on the 12th addressed that it was discolorization of the water, where we know that was a raw discharge from the pump station as well that occurred on that. So it seems like downplaying. Point 2 is really to complete this report of all the things that have been asked in previous meetings and the one today. And for Rukatane Point, I believe this is a timeliness issue, as well as the reason I asked on the 7th was because this is a concern brought up from members of the community in this forum, not only in my term, but terms before. So it is an issue, and it seems to be swept under the rug. I'm asking for information, not so that we can be informed about this actual situation, and so that we can potentially remedy it or look to when we can remedy it. It seems like we're not getting the information asked for, as if we are a silent partner to Wellington Water, that you say what work you're going to do and just want the money, ask for the money from us, whereas our job is to actually make the decisions on what works get done in our city. And in order to do that, we need to be informed. So we need that information from you to know whether or not we are doing it, when we're doing it, and why we're doing it. We need the full package of information in order to make those decisions. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fiddle. Does anybody else want to speak to the motion?
Are we going to have debate?
Well, this is effectively debate at this stage. What I'm asking for is that obviously everybody understanding orders has 5 minutes to speak. That's the limit. So you can use that to, argue other points, but the opportunity to ask questions of officers has been met so as to not take up time within that 5 minutes. So for the purposes of your using the word debate, this is your opportunity for 5 minutes. If up to 5 minutes, you may choose to just be very straightforward and use only 30 seconds to articulate your position on the motion, and we'll go that way.
So I have a right to reply. I can
The mover has
speak-
the right to reply at the end.
I can speak as the seconder, though.
You can speak as a member of the of this committee. Absolutely.
So can I reserve that right to speak as the seconder after I've heard any other comments, if there are any? If there isn't, I'll speak now.
Yeah, you're fine. You can choose
Are
to.
there? Mayor Baker would like to speak.
Mayor Baker.
I just wanted to clarify, we did have the report to council to decide on future projects going forward from Wellington Water about what we funded and what we didn't, because we had the discussion about what was happening up in Waitangarua and also down in Mana Esplanade, where we have flows which are a lot heavier and go into the other side of the harbour where people swim all the time. So we did make those decisions.
So, anybody else wants to speak to the motion? Mike?
Yeah, look, do the officers know what's expected of them here? I mean, how much of a report do you want? Because I actually got quite a bit of clarity from this. I know there are points in there that need clarification. Murray Wright's one in particular. But otherwise, it made sense to me, the report, and I don't want to be sitting for 3 days reading a report that's padded out just for the sake of padding it out.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Leggett.
Well, I agree with the previous two speakers. I mean, I thought that the information that some of the questions asked and the information that we got back was entirely adequate in terms of how much depth do we want to go into. I mean, this is why we have Wellington Water. Yes, we can ask questions, but I, for one, am pretty satisfied in terms of what we are doing. We're going to get some more clarification, but I wouldn't like to see huge reports that you have to wade through and make these meetings 4 hours. If the questions come beforehand, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Porirua Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to speak to this. And while we do have clarity around this report now, it's actually taken nearly 2 hours to get that clarity. And I think that this amendment is well constructed and is giving a clear message to Wellington Water that in future, we want reports that we can read, that we're going to take the time to read and that we understand, and that the information that you put in that report is correct information, it's credible information. It's not information that's telling us a different story, like what we had on the 12th, that it's partially treated sewage and now it's discoloured sludge. So while I agree that, we now know we've got the clarity of what's in that report, it has taken nearly 2 hours to get there, and I don't think that that's good enough. And I think that it's really about time that Wellington Water did get the message that, we do want the adequate information. We want the credible information. We want it in a timely manner. We don't want to see what's happened again today, that we've asked questions, you don't know about it, you're going to go and find out about it. And that's, I just don't believe that that's good enough. I don't think that's good enough at all. And in particular, I like the part about the report about Rukatane Point Pump Station. And I don't know if if Porirua City Council was made aware of what the priorities are for what we want Wellington Water to do. I haven't seen that. Maybe you've discussed it in one of your closed workshops, but I haven't read that somewhere. If officers can instruct me to where I can find that information, that would be really good. But for the purposes of today and for this hui, I do support this recommendation, and I particularly support this recommendation about prioritising Rukatane Point Pump Station, and for the things that I clearly outlined before. That Littleton Ave, we've got heaps of poo going into the harbour. The harbour's full of poo already. We can't swim in there. We can't do activities unless it's on top of the water. We can't get any kaimoana out of there, but we can in Titahi Bay. And I don't want to wait until Titahi Bay coastal waters and even going around to Plymouth and Shelley Bay. I don't want to wait until it's at the same stage as Porirua Harbour. Surely it makes sense that that's where we prioritise. And in order for us to know that, we need that report. And given that I took the time to read your report, to come to this hui, to read all of it, and I also took the time to sit here for 2 hours and get that clarity, I don't believe it's too much to ask that you do this report and that it comes back to us so that Wellington City Council, as well as Porirua City Council, know how bad things are here and why we need to change the prioritisation if it's already been made that it's Littleton Ave is the first one. So I'm supporting this, and I hope that my other two colleagues are going to support this as well, because things have got to change. Otherwise, what are we here for? What are we here for every quarter? Just to rubber stamp what you guys pass us? Because that's what it kind of feels like.
Thank you, Porirua Kelly. Before I carry on with the business of the meeting, I'm going to request that we extend the meeting to continue into 4 p.m. That is another hour. Mindful that we have still got 5 p.m. Sorry. My apologies. I am mindful that there are still other items on the agenda as well. So I would expect that we choose not to go longer than that. I will move it. Is there a seconder? I need to move this because we're getting very close to the time period. So
I've got to be out of here.
I got your note, Mike. Thank you for that.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I have to leave now.
Okay. Noting Councillor Legger is leaving now. However, is there a seconder for the motion? Oh, sorry. Porirua Kelly has seconded the motion. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary? The motion is carried. Thank you. Before Councillor Fila has her right of reply, I am perhaps the only other person on the committee who hasn't actually said anything in regards to this proposed amendment. So I probably should say something before we go back to the right of reply. For me, this is a line call. I think a few points have already been raised by others in the debate about this. One is that yes, we have been able to get answers to the questions. However, there is a narrative here that I think has been expressed already about the relative challenge of trying to get information back in a reasonable time period for this committee to do its work. And I would also point out that one of the most important principles as a councillor, coming into this role, is the ability to make prudent decisions. Prudence for me requires that we are able to understand and have access to all information that is possible in order to make that in good faith as governors. That is, for me, where the line stands, our ability to answer these questions to the best of our knowledge. Now, suggestions have been made already, supported by Wellington Water, around improving the mechanism by which we can actually get some of these questions front-loaded into the process, and to also redouble our efforts in terms of incorporating requests that have been made in this meeting into subsequent reports. That said, I still believe that the sentiment that is expressed, particularly in point 1, still feels true to me. And for that reason, I will support the motion However, I would also point out to committee members, let us all make sure that through our efforts, for at least our part, that we never have to put a motion like this again. With that, Councillor Field, you have the right to reply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's just, I guess what I want to, just talking to the points that have been raised. Yes, you're right, I don't want to be 4 hours in a big long report. We get enough of those. It is really to give us the information that was requested. We need to know what's going on in the area, what's the problem, how do we fix it? How does it compare to all the other areas? Because had we been given this information when it was requested, and I feel we do have a duty to address this issue. As I said, it's come up by multiple, or it's come up at least twice from the public. I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your flow of logic either, but it's just been brought to my attention by officers that there might be a couple of amendments that actually may make it easier, may make this motion even better. And I hope that as mover and seconder, you'll be happy to these proposed amendments. One is that in point 2, that the Chief Executive of Porirua City Council replace the word instruct with require, because our body does not have any powers to directly, but it meets the same objective of a requirement. And then without delay, compile this report in its entirety and provide the financial implications to Porirua City Council. So instead of this, it would say the financial implications, which I think is also the sentiment around prioritisation from a financial point of view.
So what do you have?
So again, we're going back to point 2. So require is that first part, and then where it says without the delay to complete this report in its entirety and provide, replace the word this with the financial implications, which I think is closer to the actual point, which is the sentiments that I understood from the moving and the debate thus far. Are you happy with those amendments?
Well, we have been given we got a number last time. He said 6.4 million was how much it would cost. That actually wasn't what I was asking for. That was great, we had that information, but what I'm asking is to have a wider view over the works, the program of works, so that we can look at it, and rather than Wellington Water saying, well, it's fine for them to say this is what we recommend, these are the issues, this is why, but we never actually ever had that for Rukatane Point. And I wasn't, that what the Mayor mentioned, I don't know if you were referring to the 30th of November, was that when Wellington Water came and talked about our budget and capital works, that didn't mention Rukatane Point at all. And other councillors in our council and in Wellington wouldn't know that this is an issue because they're not in this committee.
Yeah.
So that's why I want this in writing, so that it can actually be brought to their attention. Maybe it doesn't get across the line, but at least we're informed and the whole council is informed, and it can be up for discussion for the LTP. So that,
I think your point's a valid one. What I would suggest then is that having had this debate now on YouTube, it allows the officers to understand the purpose of what this report would be from your words, as opposed to requiring it to be explicitly stated within the motion itself. And on that basis, if you were to agree to the amendment to just with regards to instruct, change to require. And nothing more, then you would both be satisfactory with that?
Yes.
Jack, we're all good on that? Excellent. Sorry, Councillor Philo, you still have time to, if you want to use that for your right of reply.
I've lost my thought. I'll find it back. So it's with our decision making at the time. For example, and I'm not saying that this is the one, but the odour consent, that's 8 million. Right, that's an odour consent that's in the capital works that this isn't in this paper. But we as councillors could look and say, well, which one is more critical to the environment, which one affects us and our residents the most, and perhaps then we will make that decision to address the pump station upgrade Or maybe it's we can see that Parramatta is really in need as well. Maybe rather than doing renewals, we would address what's most critical. What I'm looking for is the information, what's going on in the area, how bad is it, so that we can make informed decisions about where we put the funding. That's really where I'm getting at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Filo. I
waffled
think
about
we've had a robust debate around the table. I'm going to put this is a vote with regards to the amendments, not the full substantive. We're all on the same page here. Cool. We'll go to the vote. It's been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, I believe it is carried. We are now going to the substantive. So that's with the amendments and the record and the point one, which is to receive the report. We're going to go straight to the vote on this. It's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, the motion is carried. So you want no's on the full substantive, which includes your amendment? No. Yeah.
Take it separately.
So the point of order you're having is that you want to vote on point one and support points 2 and 2A.
And can we have a division?
Can have a division if you wish. Yes. So we'll start with point 1. Those in favour? Yeah. Councillor Duncan and Councillor Hayward vote yes. To the contrary, no. Councillor Filo, Porirua Kelly. That is a tie. As casting vote, I vote in favour. To point 2, we will have it all together as one. All those in favour say aye. Aye. That's Councillors Hayward and Filo and Porirua Kelly. And to the contrary, an abstention from Councillor Duncan. I believe that motion is carried. Excellent. Okay, we got through the nitty-gritty of that little part. Wellington Water, I do want to, before you go, first of all, thank you for coming in. These are always challenging conversations, but you and I would both agree the importance of your role to providing certainty for the community as you provide services from wherever you take the water from and where your water ends up. So I appreciate that you have come in and made the effort to be here today, and thank you for that. Let's move on. 2. Item 7.2, report 7.2, which is the wastewater treatment plant discharge post-event review. The recommendations are to receive the report, note that Wellington Water has apologised for the delay, note the steps taken from Wellington Water Limited, and note that a wider review of the relevant contract has been commissioned. I'm going to move that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Filo, thank you. Are there any questions in regards to this report? Porirua Kelly.
Just a very quick one, you'll be pleased to hear. Why is the findings of the independent review going to take you 3 to 6 months? Given that we're talking about that, we're talking about the incident in April, eh? So, no?
No, that's a review of the regional wastewater treatment plant contract in its entirety, so for all 4 wastewater treatment plants, not just as it applies to Porirua.
Okay, I missed that.
Any other questions, Porirua Kelly?
Are you sure? Because it's got in here about the Tani point there as
Absolutely positive.
I like that answer. I like that answer. Thank you.
Okay. I have just 2 questions, which I didn't bring up in the previous item, but I do want to bring up here. And I guess this first one is, are you able to figure out how we are going to be able to assess the trustworthiness of Wellington Water to resolve these types of issues in the future? My understanding is that you may have a centrifuge that may fail, but how can we assess the level of confidence that Wellington Water is trying to actually prevent these types of specific situations with sludge in future?
Can you just repeat the question, sir? I'm not too sure I understand. How do we give you assurance that we...
Perhaps I'll ask a different question and then we'll come back to that one. As I understand it, with regards to the sludge, the main initiating factor was that one of the centrifuges was unable to be utilised during the period leading up to the incident. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And so that had implications in terms of the ability to remove sludge from the effluent as it's being treated. But one of the other factors that came up in the previous item was also the time of operation of the plant and being able to use to process that, as well as the centrifuge issue. Is that correct as well? It wasn't just the centrifuge; it was also
No, so there's
plant
multiple.
operations was what
There's multiple issues leading up to the failure of the centrifuge, as well as once we had the centrifuge back up and operational. That the timing to reduce that build up. It's not straightforward with timings of the landfill, for instance.
Yeah.
Constraints.
So the processing of so I just want to remove any doubt in my mind that there was no way that the plant operation could have been extended beyond its current operating hours to deal with the centrifuge being out of line, so being one of them being offline, to help process additional sludge during that time period when you have only one centrifuge available.
When we have only one centrifuge available, we can't keep up with what's coming into the plant's the short answer.
Okay.
Yeah, due to the timings of the landfill, for instance. Yeah.
Right. So there's no obviously there's no local storage of that for fears of effluent and odour complaints.
Odour complaints is the primary problem there. Yeah.
Okay. So there is always the possibility that there may be a plant failure, and there may, and I'm not talking about the communication issues with regards to this specific event. What is in your mind is there an increased or decreased likelihood that we're going to see another plant failure of this type happening at the treatment plant with regards to the centrifuges in this instance?
So in this particular instance, we've taken another look at condition assessments, which we regularly do, of the equipment. So we've just finished that work, and we're awaiting a report on that. We've also worked with the landfill to ensure that we can reduce the sludge inventory within the process. So that's looking good. And we've also looking at the spares inventory that we keep on site as well, and also the access from suppliers, as well as additionally we're looking at a contract with the equipment supplier, which will further strengthen, I guess, our ability to respond to a similar issue.
So I come back to my first question. I guess we are trying to relay on behalf of the community, the ability of being able to trust the likelihood of whether this type of event would happen again, specifically around plants, and notwithstanding all the explanations that have been given, is there some way that you can give assurance to the community around this type of thing?
One of the things that we are looking at, again, is the redundancy of the equipment. So that lack of redundancy has been addressed, will be addressed with sludge handling project. So I can provide the assurance that we are, in the long term, looking for a permanent solution that will help give us confidence going forward. But as we currently stand, until that project is completed, they're just, other than the vigilance of the operators of Veolia, that is what we're relying on.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Councillor Fiddle?
A while ago when we came to the plant to visit, I believe it may have been you who commented and said that the plant is, with all the upgrades that have been done, that it's fully compliant, consented, there's no issues there. The issue is with the networks and them not getting to the sewage getting to the plant. So I was surprised when I read the report, when I got the notifications that it was from the treatment plant, and so is this a new issue that has occurred because of that dewatering sludge mechanical incident that happened in February, or has this happened prior to February?
So in past years, we have had the sludge build up like we have, and it has led to incidents several years ago as well. equipment, that we were talking about at the time when you toured the plant. There's been significant investment from Porirua City Council in the treatment plant. The age of our treatment plant at Porirua is such that a lot of the renewals and equipment has already been undertaken. So, in a regional context for the Wellington's 4 metropolitan treatment plants, the Porirua treatment plant's the jewel in our crown because it is that little bit older that some of those renewals have already been undertaken. There is still more work to do to address the capacity issues that sludge project will address. So while we have a treatment plant that we've invested significantly in to make it more reliable, certainly far more reliable than it was when Wellington Water first started being involved in the operations there, there is still more work to do with that capacity constraint in the sludge handling. And that has been a constraint since I was first involved, sort of 8-9 years ago. So, yes, I acknowledge that I was pointing to the plant being our only compliant treatment plant, and so it's quite regrettable that we did have that failure. And I guess we will be at risk of that type of failure until we do have that capacity increase with the sludge project.
Thank you, Jeremy. I read somewhere in our report it mentioned debottlenecking with the, I believe it was talking about the sludge.
Yeah.
Are you able just to comment on that?
Yeah, so that's to do with the process. There's a thickening process that is quite constrained at the moment. There's only the 2 centrifuges, so there is absolutely no redundancy. So if we want to service a centrifuge, for instance, then we go down to that position we're in, back in February and March, where there's only one machine operating, and so sludge builds up. So the bottlenecking gives us that. It provides that redundancy that we're able to take equipment offline to service it and do all those sorts of things. So,
any other questions? No? Okay. Then we will move to the vote. It has been moved, it's seconded. The items are to receive, to note the apology, note the steps that have been undertaken, and the wider view of the relevant contracts. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, abstentions? 1 abstention, Porirua Kelly? No. Oh, sorry. Are you against? Note against. The motion is carried. Thank you again, Wellington Water, for being in here. Appreciate it immensely. Let us move, therefore, on to item 7.3, Spicer Landfill Joint Committee Update, January to March 2024. I'm going to move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mike. David, would you like to lead out, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. There's a couple of comments to make to the report. The first one is an update to the biogas to energy opportunity. At the time that I wrote this report, we hadn't quite finished the agreement to be had with LMS Energy. That has been completed now. And LMS Energy in Australia have the final form of agreement yesterday, so I'm looking forward to them returning that all signed up. The next steps then on that particular piece of work will be to identify an actual location on the landfill for them to either lease or have a licence to occupy and then put their machinery on it.
This is very good news.
The actual machinery itself may take a while to arrive. We could be talking about 12 months. However, there might be the possibility of other facilities coming in a little bit earlier, but we'll find out from LMS Energy the likely arrival time for the equipment. The other comment I had, which was related to the odour complaints and in particular the hydrogen sulphide graphs. So the comment had been made that they do look a little bit different in as much as the scales on the graphs for January, February and March, the X scales, the X axes look different, and also the actual titles of the graph look different too. These graphs come to us directly from Moat Limited, who are the company that supply the air quality monitors to us and gather all the data. There's a crazy amount of data which is summarised for us and then ultimately brought to us in these graphs. They are all the same thing. They are hydrogen sulfide on an average of an hour basis. The reason the x-axes are different scales is simply because the graphs have auto-scaled themselves up. So if you look at February, for example, we've got a peak of 40 on the February graph and a peak of 35 on the March graph. So what we'll do is I'll work with the data analyst in my team and the scientist at Moat who provides this information to us, and we'll get these graphs in a better format for the next meeting.
Okay.
Apart from that, that's all the commentary I've got additional to the actual report, so I'll take it as read and take any questions.
Questions? Representative Allen.
Right, my turn. The first questions I've got are outstanding items from the last meeting. So you said that at this meeting you'll provide information on the air dispersal units going in at the landfill. I can't see anything in the report. You called them air blasters.
Yes, through the chair, we have not purchased or leased any air blasters yet. We were thrown out a little bit to find out that the company that supplies in New Zealand does not allow them to be leased. You have to actually purchase them, but we haven't done that.
Is there a plan to?
Yes, we will just take a look at our budgets and make sure we can afford to do that, make sure we can afford to keep running them. Just conscious of it being a new financial year soon, so I can report back to the next committee.
So just before, I don't want to interrupt your flow, Representative Allen, but there is, and I don't want to get into this debate right now around the financial report, the last item of the report around fees, does incorporate language around measures to help with odour issues as part of the fees for the new financial year. Are these things connected in terms of the blowers?
Not directly, no.
Okay, sorry, Representative Allen.
That's okay. Also from the last meeting, you talked about extra monitors going in at the landfill that would be linked with, with computers or something. Is there an update on that?
Yeah, the final report is on the charges increase. One of the components that we're seeking a minor increase in charges is to pay for a 3-year lease of 3 monitors that will be all linked together, plus pull in information from weather monitoring stations, plus the existing 2 monitors, to be able to better look at the past 24 hours pattern of wind movement, plus odour contaminants, etc., and 24 hours looking forward. The next move is, so long as we can make that funding available, then we have the company ready to sign up and put the instruments in for us.
Thank you. Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. The other outstanding item from the last meeting was in regard to the hydrogen sulfide charts. You were going to include the scientists' commentary about them. I can't see that either.
No, my apologies, I haven't done that. I'll make sure that comes in.
I assume you mean for both the previous period as well as ongoing, is that correct?
Yes, that would be useful.
Okay.
There is no data in the report from the air monitor that's actually at the landfill boundary.
No, that monitor went in December, and we've not long actually received the first of our reports for that one. But we can include that for the next report, and that'll be additional to the existing one.
Can we have it earlier? I mean, it is now the end of May. Can we have it earlier than that? Because it would be useful to have that data, particularly when you're talking about 0.9, the spikes in hydrogen sulfide in Tawa, to compare the 2 monitors to see if what's happening at the landfill boundary at the same time.
Yes, that's certainly possible. So we are uploading the monthly reports for the first air quality monitor onto our website. We'll make sure that we've got the other one loaded up there as well. Plus, we could do a summary to circulate around to the committee.
Yes, once that information is live, it would be good for the committee to be made aware of it as well.
Thank you. My next question relates to page 44.7. This paragraph has never been included before. You've always said that the hydrogen sulfide readings, we worked on the Ministry for the Environment Ambient Air Quality Guideline, which was 7 micrograms per cubic metre or less. Now you're saying the appropriate standard to apply is different, that it's the MBIE workplace 15-minute short-term exposure limit. Why suddenly are we including a new measuring standard, whereas for the last sort of a year at least we haven't? Is it just to take into account that we've got higher figures and we want to make them seem less important, or?
No. The switch is simply to the MB workplace standard, which is a tougher standard to meet, as opposed to the MFE ambient air quality standards, which doesn't have such a high threshold.
Doesn't look tougher. You've got 14,000 micrograms per cubic metre rather than 7 micrograms. And now we're getting peaks of 40 and 35 micrograms.
What I'd like to do for the next report, maybe drop in both standards.
Could we also request the information with regards to this report as well, please? Representative Allen.
Page 45.9, or 0.89 and probably over the page, you're talking about the spikes in hydrogen sulfide at the air monitor in Tawa, and you're making some assumptions that because there's no complaints on certain days, that therefore there's likely to be other reasons than landfill gas causing those events. I think that is an assumption. I mean, maybe there's no one at home on those days, I'm not sure. Also, what other possible reasons are there that would cause readings of 39, 40 or whatever in the suburban neighbourhood, other than landfill or sewage pipes?
So those hydrogen sulfides are coming from landfill gas. That's the most likely reason. Unlikely to be coming from the wastewater network. Several years ago, we actually had Wellington Water test that by looking for defects in the wastewater network around Chester Street, that part of Tawa. So those readings that we've tabled here will be landfill gas.
So then why in 0.9, that's your last line, say the conclusion is that while there may be some link between complaints and elevated levels of hydrogen sulfide, it is more likely that there are reasons other than landfill gas causing some odour events?
Because the number of events that sit outside of these spikes. So we've got spikes here on this table, but odour events are happening outside of these particular events, additional to simply the spikes in the gas readings.
But haven't you always told us that the human nose is much better than the air monitor at picking up odour?
Correct.
So therefore it could still be odour from the landfill that we're picking up with our noses and complaining about?
Correct. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying there are a number of reasons why you might be getting odour complaints. Landfill gas is one of them. There will be other things coming from the landfill that is not hydrogen sulfide that may be causing the complaints. And in fact, if we have a look at the breakdown of bottom of page 46, so the graph here at the bottom of page 46 is showing us what people have reported they believe they are smelling. We've got the rubbish bin smell versus the sulphurous smell. And the difference here is the sulphurous smell will be the hydrogen sulfide, most likely, but the rubbish bin smell is less likely to be.
Just to make a comment on that, which I think I've made at every meeting, there's lots of people like me who actually can't tell the difference. I just say it stinks, and then the operator wants me to choose an option, and I always choose rubbish bin because I don't know what else to choose. So there could be skewed data as to how people determine what they're smelling. I do have some more questions. I have a comment on the cost of odour control mitigations. That's a huge amount of money being spent on trying to resolve the odour. Would that not be better spent going towards a new landfill in a different location?
We are working on an alternatives assessment report, as I think I've mentioned in the report here, but there's that report is not complete yet. I do want to bring the first draft of that to the next committee.
Thank you. Just looking at the appendix, the letter that you sent back to Greater Wellington Regional Council regarding the offensive and objectionable odour, you noted, I think it's on page 57, that there was the hydrogen sulphide monitor in Westwood Road shows no corresponding spike. However, it did spike the night before. And as we know, the odour does travel down the gullies from the hills into Tawa and just settle in cool weather. So it could actually still be from that spike the night before. The other comment I want to make is on that same paragraph, you said there were 10 odour complaints on the 22nd, 8 of them centred around the Franklin Road, Wakefield Terrace, Greer Crescent area. You said that there, maybe not, that there was no reading, I thought there was something saying there was no reading on the 22nd for a spike. However, we need to bear in mind that those streets are approximately a kilometre away from where that monitor is in Tawa. So just because there may not be a spike on the monitor doesn't mean there's not odour happening or landfill odour happening in those streets. I think that was the only other question or the comment I had to make was regarding the 0800 number being out of service. I know it's now working again, but you're not able to tell us exactly when it went down, are you?
No, that was a resident that tried to use it that brought it to our attention.
Exactly. So we don't know. Are you able to tell when the last call to that 0800 number was made? Because it could have been.
Yes, there will be a log of calls coming in from the 0800 number. However, I understand it's not used very much.
Okay, so it could have been down for the days that we've got no calls for the spikes. I think
sorry, through the chair, it's possibly been down for days, but when I say it's not used very much, there's a handful of occurrences of it being used during the course of a month. The very, very high usage, the far greater number of complaints coming in through either the web form or direct into our customer call centre or after hours. The 0800 number is seldom used.
Okay. And the other question I have is around the health and safety report. There was 4 instances of a machine or somebody or something hitting the gas lines. That's actually quite concerning. What's the potential risk for fire or explosions when someone hits a gas well or a gas riser?
Sorry, it's low. What they've noted is that they've actually made contact with it as opposed to puncturing or rupturing it.
Okay, and so none of them were ruptured that you know of?
As I understand, none of them have been ruptured.
So there shouldn't be any impact on odour from the gas?
Not as a result of those incidences on the gas wells, no. But we do know that in the past, from the middle of 2023, we had some incidences with one wellhead popping off, if you recall, and that was linked to some odour complaints on that day.
Okay. And my last question on page 57, you've said that there's a review about the process followed to manage the effects of moving the active tip face, and that review was due to be completed by the end of April. So what did that review find?
I haven't had the result of that review, but I will chase that up with Enviro NZ.
And can that be shared with us?
Yes, most likely. We'll just wait to see what's in the review and, yeah.
I assume that the only reasons would be, as it would be for any other Logoima requests around commercial sensitivity, for instance.
Yes, that would be correct, yep.
Any other questions on this one?
Sorry.
Porirua Kelly?
Sorry, I was distracted, sorry. On page 50, the withdrawal of the tipping trailer use. So I've had quite a number of complaints across our city, actually, not just where I live, regarding this new law that's been put in place. And I understand that we need to, the points made at 36, that we need to, the priority has got to be safety. But this was one incident, and it's now impacting on a lot of people, and particularly our elderly people who have specifically bought tip trailers so that they can manage dumping their waste at the tip, because it just makes it a lot easier for them to press the button rather than have whānau to help them manually unload it. So I see that you did an investigation, and one of the comments that I've had repeatedly asked of me is, wouldn't it be a lot easier, simpler, safer if tip trailers were able to reverse into the the beginning, the pit, yeah. If they were able to reverse into the pit, you have a yellow line of the same as what was suggested that you would do as a first thing that you said, and then Envira, whoever they are, said that that was, you couldn't manage that, which I would agree. If that was the thing, you wouldn't be. But it would be easy to manage. That everybody knows the tip trucks, if you come to the mouth of the pit, there's a yellow line, so you can only go that far, and you tipped the tip trailer into that. That's totally safe, and the only one that's in there in the pit is the bulldozer driver. So was that considered? Gee, that took a long time to get the question out. So thank you for your patience.
Just to repeat the question back so I make sure I've understood that correctly. So the previous operation, or the way that the tipping trailers were being used, the trailer was being backed up all the way to the very edge of the pit, so that when the hydraulics come up, everything falls down into the pit. With the problem being that the pit at Spicer, compared to the pits at Southern and Silverstream, is quite a shallow one. So anything over a certain length would not necessarily end up in the pit, it would just be getting held up.
I'm only talking about Porirua, Spicer.
Sure. Okay. Versus not backing all the way up to the pit, but still emptying the load onto the ground. So just for clarity, you were referring to... Yes. So that was what was being done. The trailers were being backed all the way to the tip, reversed, and dropped directly into the tip.
Yeah, but the difference is that what was the process before is that you had to, the tip guys that were there had to unlock the gates. So the gates had to be unlocked for a tip truck to come in. And I get it what you're saying, how they would get stuck and all the rest of it. But what I'm suggesting, and it has been suggested by a number of members of the public who have said that it would be far easier for us to continue around to the beginning of the how the bulldozer goes in right there. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Let's take answer from officers.
Because that's safe.
Yeah, let's just get to officers and hear their response.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm reluctant to do detailed traffic design in here, but I can assure you, Liz, that the Chief Executive and the Chief Operating Officer from Enviro are coming down to visit us next week. We've got 2 days with them to talk about a range of issues that we're not very happy with respect to waste management, and this is one of them. So I'll be happy to kind of come back to you, because we can't make decisions without their input, right? Because they actually kind of own the site, if you like. So we have some detailed discussions with very senior people from Enviro next week. We'll be happy to report to you offline or online about the results of those discussions.
I would appreciate that, because I tell you, I still get irate people, and I guess, and they're generally elderly, because they have made an investment in a tip trailer for that purpose, so that they could still do that. And what I wouldn't like to see is that, and we have had this happen before in the city, where they just get frustrated and they just dump things on the side of the road. And we don't want that to happen.
appreciate that, Poe Kelly, and I note the response from officers. I'm also noting the point that at the end of paragraph 32, I don't want to get into a debate about this, but just to say that the staff member required hospitalisation and several months off work. We still must maintain our commitment to health and safety for those who are working on our behalf. Any other questions? No? Cool. We're going to move to a vote on this. So we've the motion has been moved. It's been seconded. It is to accept the report. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, the motion is passed. Mike, I'm aware that you need to leave very quickly. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I perhaps it may be useful because I think the Spicer landfill fees increase will probably require your feedback in there. If we are comfortable with that, can we bring that forward and deal with that? Okay, so let's go to report 7.5, Spicer landfill fees increase. Note that the motion says that to receive the report and that there are two parts that we need to agree to. One is to increase all charges by 13% except for green waste, and that we will reduce the green waste by 23%. David, are you happy to, the item has been taken as read, but is there any additional commentary that you want to give?
Yes, thank you, Chair. There is one. Paragraph 21.
Sorry, just one thing. I require a seconder. Mike, would you be happy? Done. Carry on, David.
Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 21, I've said that the estimate for the lost revenue from dropping green waste by $63 a tonne over 3,000 tonne is $120,000 a year. Clearly it's not. So the $120,000 was a figure that when we were doing this price reduction, we started with a target of $40. And as we were working through the various components of this particular waste stream, we were able to bring it down a bit more. So just an apology for that. If you were doing your maths, 3,000 tonne a year at a reduction of $63 a tonne is actually about 180. So other than that, no further comments in the report. 1,000.
Any questions on this item? No. I have one comment on this and then we'll move to the vote. I thank officers for trying to find ways of incentivising the use of green waste. And also, it is very rare as a councillor to ever vote for something where the fees go down. So I always note these moments. They are quite important. So with that in mind, I'm going to put the motion. We've moved it. It's seconded. Oh, do you want to debate? I'm noting that just with regards to my
Yes, okay, I'll be very quick. I just want to
Please go ahead, Porirua Kelly.
To the motion, it does annoy me that it's going up so much, but having said that, I think that it's something that we need to do, and it could be an incentive as well for us to reduce, recycle, do all of the other things, so that essentially coming to the tip is the last resort.
Yeah. Thank you, Porirua Kelly. It's a sentiment that I think we all share. Let's go to the vote. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, it is carried. So we will now move back to 7.4, which, by my reckoning, is the last item on this agenda. I would like to just point out I'm going to make a chair's recommendation for an amendment. And the reason why is that Representative Allen, who is not able to vote or move these motions, approached me with a specific request to have a motion. It is working with Democratic Services to come up with this motion. So I'm going to make a chair's recommendation to include, and you may want to bring it up on the screen, is that it's an additional point, and it is the following: request that officers provide a completion date for the alternatives assessment report and present the report to this committee at the first meeting following its completion. So that is the motion of the chair's recommendation. I'm going to move it. May I have a seconder? Porirua Kelly, thank you. So, David, with that in mind, can you please lead out and then we can ask questions, and then after that I will then go to Representative Allen for an explanation of the rationale behind her proposed, through me, proposed amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Given that the new recommendation is additional to this report, am I free to make comment on that additional to the report?
I think feel free to do so, but obviously noting that caveat.
Certainly. So as previously said, with regards to the landfill report, we are working on an alternatives assessment. The intention at the moment is to have that finished near the end of July and to be able to bring that, therefore, to the next committee. Probably the most, the next milestone in the completion of that report is discussion on the early draft with Ngāti Toa. Ngāti Toa have input to the draft we have at the moment, so we want to go back to them to seek their input further before we finalise it. So the first answer to the question there, completion date, is end of July estimated, but to come back to this committee.
Nothing in the motion, restricts the ability for when that is, just that it does happen when it is complete. Any questions? No questions. So we will then therefore go to the vote. It has, as it is a recommendation, it's been moved, it's been seconded. We are now going to the vote for the whole thing. Go. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. Abstentions? I believe it is carried. So we reached the end of our committee meeting, and thank you everybody, especially those online, for sticking it out and being a part of it. Thank you very much for your time. We will end with our karakia whakamutunga. So, with gusto, everybody, toru whā, kia horo te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, he huarahi mā tātou i te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora everyone.